Hey, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live. We are live on all the platforms in the world, except for TikTok and Instagram. Anyway, I'm Bill Caskey. I had a great week. I hope you did too. Started a brand new 2X group. This is my ongoing mastermind learning group that we always take 9 people, 9 to 10, but we like to keep it to 9 people. We just started a new group yesterday, and got probably some listeners here that are in that group. A great group. One of the things that I love about my business is I get to work with really fantastic people, just people who, when they invest in themselves or their companies invest in them, they come wanting to learn. They're not resist. I mean, there's certain things that they will resist sometimes that I'm asking them to do, because some of the things that I teach are counterintuitive, like we're going to talk about today. But generally, just great groups. So thank you to all the people in that group. And we'll be starting another one here on June 17th. Also, we're doing a 2X workshop on, I think it's the 9th, 10th, and 11th. You can pick one of those dates. We're doing a 1 hour, I think it's maybe a 90-minute on the best pathway to 2X your business, to exponentially increase your business. So I'll give you a little bit more details on that. That webpage is not quite up yet. Okay. So today it's the 7 things that you've been taught by coaches, trainers, managers that are just wrong. They're just flat wrong. And I see it every day where I go into a company and they're doing things in a certain way, and they think that way is the best way to do it. Obviously, you always think your way is the best way. But how many times have you watched a YouTube video or listened to a podcast, and even if it's something simple like how to repair a broken faucet or something like that? I had one the other day. I was trying to get a backwash on my pool hose fitting, and I couldn't do it. I went to video, and they told me exactly how to do it. So you don't get too bent out of shape about that. It's not like you would say, well, no, that works, but I want to do it my way. No, you're like, hey, I'll do anything that works. But in sales, it's not that way. In sales, in business organizations, it's not. We get so attached to how we do things and how we think and the habits that we have that it becomes hard to unmoor ourselves from those. The Bible calls them strongholds. It's these beliefs about things that are so deep within us that a guy like me comes along and says, that ain't working anymore. It's like, oh no, I know it's not working now, and it hasn't for 10 years, but it's going to start working in the next 10 years. Come on, shape up. You have to go into this with no ego. You have to go into any kind of training or growth work with no ego. Hard to do, but I'm going to share with you some things that I think we've been taught that just don't work anymore and actually cost us money. And yet a lot of you still do this. All right. So here's number 1. Always be closing. I think we laugh at this because it came from a movie, Glenn Ross, and it was Jack Lemmon was in it. I think, was it Walter Matthau? I don't know. It was a classic sales movie about how not to do things. But this was the motto that came from that, is always be closing. And even though we laugh at it, I think we typically do that. We go into a prospect interaction, and we're always thinking to ourselves, okay, how do I move this forward? What am I going to say? If he says this or she says this, I say this, how do I keep moving it forward? To me, that's another form of closing. How do I get to the close? By taking baby steps all the way through. Now, I think when you do that, you jack things up. You don't think we are so naive. We don't think our prospect feels that. Yeah, when we're in the buyer category, when we're in buying something, we can feel everything the seller says. So the seller says, hey, that price is good today, Mr. Smith, but I'm not Mr. Smith, but Mr. Smith, but it goes away on Friday. We know exactly what that is. We know we can come back here on Saturday and get that price. They're not going to turn us down. We know that, but they keep saying it. So what are you saying in your buyer-seller dance that implies to them that you're closing, that you're always closing? So stop that. It's just not helpful. It creates a lack of trust at a time when we're not trusted anyway. People just aren't trusted today. the trust in institutions, and I'm not just talking about government and education, I'm talking about even corporate institutions, your company. When you advertise and 1 million people see that ad, but only 500 buy, what do you think's happening to the other 950, whatever? They don't trust it, because of course you're going to say that, because you're trying to sell me. You're trying to sell me your stuff. So of course you're going to say you're the best. So we just don't trust things. So when you get in the buyer seller dance, stop closing, stop it. And I know some of the traditional trainers just throw up in their mouth when they hear me say that, but I'm telling you, you're not going to create trust that way. All right. The number 2 thing, and I'm not going to have a chance to look at the comments today, but if you do have a comment, I'd love to see it. I can answer it later. Number 2, overcoming objections. How many hundreds of hours or years are we going to spend in the sales training business? And I don't consider myself a sales trainer, because most sales trainers suck. They're awful. They're teaching you stuff that doesn't work today, that worked 20 years ago, and they're too lazy to change their ways. And so they keep saying, you got to go develop relationships. You got to go play golf with people. You got to go take people hunting. You got to go show up. And that's just not true. And one of the things that they do is they talk about objections a lot. How do you overcome objections? Whenever I hear someone say that, I say you're lazy in the upfront part of the process. You have not done your work properly if you're having to overcome objections later on. It happens to all of us. We miss things. We miss things in the sales process. I had a prospect last week who we went through everything. I thought we did a good job. I thought it was a good conversation. And he called me later and we had a long conversation. He's just not going to take me up on this. It was a very specific offer, had nothing to do with what we typically do. And that could have been part of it too. But I said, I didn't explain it to you well. And he laughed. He goes, no, you probably didn't. I said, I missed that because I haven't pitched this offer much lately. And so I was off my game and we had a great conversation, but it didn't amount to anything. So I screwed up. No amount of objection handling was going to fix that. I screwed it up front. So if you find yourself in this objection handling role, you messed it up front. And there's no shame in that. We all do. But don't spend any time on handling objections. It's just useless. What I would rather you do is understand what the objections are. So what's an objection in your business? What's an objection your prospect gives you? Maybe, it's just not the right time. Or, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing until we can't do it anymore, and then we'll call you, which I always like that one. Well, of course they're not. Of course that's just an excuse. What did you do up front that caused that? What did you do up front that caused that? It's almost like you left an opening for that objection to be the reason they don't want to do anything. They're lazy. They're lazy is the problem. Sometimes your customer is just flat lazy. They don't want to do the work. They say they have a problem. They really don't want to fix the problem. I mean, we've all done that before. We say, oh yeah, this problem's costing us $1 million. Whenever someone says, oh, this problem cost me $1 million, I always say to them, this problem does not cost you $1 million because you're sitting there with your hair all combed and starch in your shirts. You do not look like a person who has $1 million problem. And then they get real because it's a fact. If you say you have $1 million problem, but you're not acting like it, you don't have $1 million problem. You have customers right now that have big problems they're unwilling to admit it to you because you're not doing the work up front to create the stage, to set the stage, to create the atmosphere, so that you never hear about their $1 million problem. And then you go and propose and they don't buy, and you think it's because of some flaw in the ointment, some flaw in the product. It has nothing to do with that. All right. Number three things your trainers and coaches have taught you that's just flat wrong. Ask about the pain up front. Ask about the pain. I'm doing a podcast next week. I just had a coaching call yesterday with a new client, and he had a call with a lady, a prospect. We'll call her a suspect today, actually. So we'll hear how he does. And I recorded it, and I got his permission to use it. And I'm going to walk through exactly how I coached him. And one thing that was important in that coaching, he wanted to go right for, well, what's the problem? Why did you decide to set up this call? I said, no, she's not ready for that. She's got to get to know you. She doesn't even know you. He doesn't have any videos up on his site yet. He will. He doesn't have any document he can send her, although he's written a book, and he could probably send her that, but that's a bit overkill. Send a 400-page book. Say, here, read this before our call on Friday. So the problem is that he wants to go right to pain or right to problem or dilemma or need, whatever you want to call it. No, you can't do that. That's a huge miss. You've got to create the atmosphere where that problem surfaces organically, not where you're digging and probing. I always hated that term probe. Let's probe for pain. What? That's stupid. That's just dumb. And I know a lot of you will like turn me off now because you're like, oh, Caskey has lost it. It's stupid. It's stupid. Let it happen organic. You don't have to probe for it. Now you do have to ask. You have to be interested. How about being interested? How about that? Instead of probing, how about just being curious? Being curious about the problems. And I said to him, it is good to find out what was there about my email, because he sent her an email. What was there about my email that caused you to set this call up? Because he mentioned 3 things in the email. And I said, maybe she'll come back and say, well, it was points number 1 and 3 that really caught my attention. Okay, great. Let's talk about that. But it's not probing, and it's not pain points. We're not finding a point. Whenever I hear someone say pain point, I know that the game is manipulation, because we're trying to find that point of pain so that we can what? Tell them how we can solve it. Sell them something. It's not a pain point. Pain is not a point. Pain is a feeling that they have about things going wrong in their business that maybe, just maybe, you can help them solve. It's not a point. It's a feeling. And I know you'll say, well, we just use that as no. It's just what's the problem? What's the problem we're trying to solve? There's 2 things. What's the problem we're trying to solve, and what's the destination we're trying to get them to? If you're not focused on either of those things, you should be focused on both. Then it's a losing game, and you won't scale, and your closing rates will be 12%. Why would you, if you're a business owner, why would you tolerate 12% closing rates? Your closing rate should be 60 to 80%. If you do the right work up front. If you don't, then you can expect 10, 12%. Number 4, I'm just going to do 5 because we're almost out of time. Number 4 is it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. That's what coaches tell you. It's all about the numbers. That's a lie. That's a flat out lie. It is not only about the numbers. The numbers play a role, yes, but I'm more interested in you and how you show up. If you're showing up scarce, fearful, weak, let's just say those 3 things because I could get a little weird here. Stressed, fearful, weak. What do you think the odds of you making the sale, or at least advancing the deal, is? Not very good. So if I come along and say, how many calls you're making a day? And you say, well, I've got, 10 scared, fearful, and weak calls. Me telling you to make 20, how much impact's that going to make? None. It's not about the numbers. It's about what you put into the numbers. It's about you, your sales conduct, my sales conduct, how I think about myself, what my strategy is to generate new opportunities. Now, there are numbers to it. Like if I run a webinar, like we're running this workshop here in 3 weeks. And again, I'll tell you more about it next week. And I don't think our web page is done yet, but it's called the 2X. It's a 2X workshop, meaning I'm going to teach you exactly the formula and the path that helps you go from where you are to 2X your possibilities, not in 30 days, but over time. Well, I know that if we have 100 people on that workshop, that I'm probably going to engage 10 people, let's just say. It's usually about 10 to 15%. So I know those numbers are important, because if I want to fill one of my groups, then I know that I've got to have a certain number of people. So that is a numbers game. That is a numbers game. But if I'm only closing 20% of those people once they get on the phone and they've been through a webinar and they know what the price is and they know everything about it, I'm only closing 20% of those, I'm terrible. I'm awful. So it's an input game. Numbers are the outputs, but I want you to think about selling as an input game. Okay, let's do number 5 here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, here's one. Here's the last. I got about 10 or 12 of these, but these are good. Number 5, Bill, it's a relationship game. You've got to go out and develop relationships. I don't think business today starts with a relationship game. Sometimes it does, but I think this notion that we're going to go out and build a relationship feels so, it feels like, really? Well, why are we doing that? Why do we want to build a relationship with somebody? Why don't they want to build it with us? Why doesn't your customer want to build a relationship with you? Do you ever think about that? Why don't you position yourself so that they want to build a relationship with you? So they want to learn more about what you do to see if it can help them. But if it's always us trying to build a relationship, we're sideways in the sales process the whole time. I heard a saying the other day, if you have to drag them in, then you have to drag them around. I'm talking about customers. If you have to drag them in, you have to kicking and screaming, you're dragging them in because you're giving incentives, you're trying to give a bonus, you're discounting until Friday and all that garbage. And they're not committed to the solution, but they decide that, well, I guess, he's been real nice to me and I guess I'll buy it. No, you're going to have to drag them around then. I don't want to drag people around. You shouldn't either. So I know it's easy to say everything's about relationships and relationship selling, but it never starts with a relationship. It rarely starts with a relationship. It usually starts with some kind of tactic, some kind of transaction that occurs. Maybe that transaction is a cold call, cold outreach. Maybe the transaction is you send a note out to a half dozen people that you might be interested in working with, as this gentleman did who recorded the coaching call. He sent an email, he sent a video, I think he sent a video message on LinkedIn to 10 people and booked a couple of appointments, one of which was this lady. And so that's an example of it's a transaction. That's not a relationship. Now, that's what he's working toward, and that's fine. But this idea that selling is a relationship sport, it's just not. It can culminate in that, but it always starts with a transaction of some kind. If your transaction is not right, then probably the relationship will never blossom. If the first, I don't want to use dating analogies because I've been out of that game for a few months, a few decades. But it's always the first transaction that leads to the second transaction that leads to a relationship. I have a group of, as I said, 9 people who just started in my latest mastermind group. And 90% of them started with me 3 to 4 years ago, listening to a podcast, watching LinkedIn Live, watching YouTube videos, reading a book. Those are all transactions that led today to where we have a mastermind coaching relationship. It didn't start there. Nothing starts there. So what you've got to be mindful of is, what are the transactions that I'm currently putting into the acquaintance so that it will develop into a relationship. And if you're just looking to go make a cold call and take somebody to lunch and start a relationship, yeah, it may work, but you got to be damn good and it's hard to scale. I would rather you start by creating some transactions that bring value to your prospect. Let that lead to the relationship. All right. So those are 5 things. I know I promised 7. Well, let me give you 2 more. There's a sales personality that is more successful than other personalities. I disagree with that totally. I think today you don't need to have this effervescent, gregarious, outgoing personality. That was the salesperson of the 70s and 80s of last century. That's not the way it is today. You don't need to be anybody but yourself today. Now, got to have a good strategy, got to have good skills, got to have good mindset. Beyond that, you don't need to be anybody other than who you are. And if you find that you are someone else when you're calling on someone and you don't think they see that and feel that, of course they do. If I see you with your wife or husband on the weekends or with your kids, and then I see you Monday morning with a client and it's too different. I mean, I'm not talking about apparel and how you're dressed and the language. I'm just, if it's too different, if it's way off, then you're phony. You're fake. You're a phony. Seventh thing is hard work equals results. That's something we've been taught. And I think when we assign labor to getting better results, our labor, work harder, work longer, work more, that's labor. Or we are a sales leader and we want to grow our business, and so we hire labor to do it. I think that's absolutely the wrong strategy. I think a better strategy is to find leverage, find places where you're under leveraged. Every one of us is under leveraged in our business. We just are. This is one of the first things that I talk about with people when we have a meeting, have a call, is where are you under leverage? They know exactly what I mean. If you don't know what leverage is, then me asking that question, probably I shouldn't be talking to you. Everybody, people who at senior level people know what that means. Where are you under leverage? Well, we have a salesperson in Vermont and he is doing $1 million a year and he should be doing 5 million. Okay, that's an under leverage point. We have 1,000 customers and we don't get any testimonials. We've never asked for video testimonials. That's a leverage point. You're under leveraged there. We have frameworks and we have problem solving mechanisms that we apply to people's problems, but we never talk about them. Under leveraged. So think about those places where you're under leveraged, leverage them, optimize them, maximize them, and then you don't have to throw labor at all these problems all the time. I hear these coaches, trainers, consultants talking about the work ethic. It's almost like they imply that we just don't want to work. I don't see that. I don't see that from anybody that I work with. Now, do we take time off sometimes? Of course. Would we rather, go get a blizzard at Dairy Queen than make 100 cold calls? Yeah, probably. So find a way to build your business that doesn't require you to make cold calls, and instead you can spend all your afternoons at Dairy Queen. All right, so those are the 7 things. I get very frustrated when I hear companies who have followed coaches and trainers with advice that just doesn't work today. It just doesn't work. And then I come along and I talk, and then 30% of the people take my advice, they take my coaching, and they take off. And the other 70 are like, well, but no, I learned this 27 years ago, and I'm certainly not going to change that. This is who I am. No, how you sell is not who you are. Who you are is totally separate from your methods, your strategies, your mindsets, totally separated, totally detached. All right. So I'll tell you more about the 2X workshop coming up on June 9th, 10th, and 11th, I think. And I hope that you've enjoyed this today, and I will see you next Friday, if not before. If you want to schedule a call with me for whatever reason, let's see, can we do this? If you have a team, frontline sales, looking for ways to grow, you can go to scheduleacallwithcaskey.com. It's .com, www. Yeah, .com, somewhere in there. Anyway, I'll see y'all later. Bye.